I have no idea if I'm live yet. Okay, I think I'm live. Hello, I'm going to give it a couple of minutes and see if anyone starts liking or commenting or anything to let me know. Oh, yay, thank you, Gemma. So I'll give it a couple of minutes for everyone to jump off after Judy's lovely live session about cognition and dogs for toddlers. I love that, and it sets me up beautifully. Um, from the day today has been fantastic, hasn't it? Hello, Chloe. Hi, Gemma. Hi, Vicky. Hi, Sean. Hi. It's wonderful to be here. And wow, like Ruby, this is just fantastic that you've done this in like a couple of days, like hyper focus for the win. Anita Tax has done a lot of stuff this morning that I'm going to cover. Um, it's just Vicky was brilliant earlier. Sean, you were great, and you do monitor lizards. Like I have a video. Anyway, I'm not going to go into lizards right now because they're something else. Because we're talking reactivity and assistance dogs. So for those that don't know me, I'm a clinical animal behaviorist. I'm a dog trainer. Most of all, I'm a dog person and I'm assistance dog owner. I live with my assistance dogs. I have a chronic illness. I'm currently trying to fund for a wheelchair because, I want one that I can actually go out with my dogs on. And one thing I find with a lot of assistance dogs is they're expected to be the perfect dog at all times, everywhere they go. These dogs don't seem to be allowed to be emotional, to have a startle response, to be a bit freaked out in some situations. And personally, I think that is incredibly unfair and a huge pressure to put onto these dogs because they are still dogs. Yes, they are assistance dogs. Yes, they're highly trained and they have gone through so much training and socialization to help prepare them for life as an assistance dog. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to struggle. It doesn't mean that they're not going to have events when they're working that are going to scare them. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get ill or unfortunately be attacked by another dog. And there's so many other things that can go on with assistance dogs. And depending on the reason that you have an assistance dog, the work they do itself can be stressful. Um, so if you have an assistance dog that caters for your physical needs, they are getting up and moving all the time for you. They're constantly checking in on you to see, do you want something? Do you need me to do something? Are you okay? They're going out shopping. They then have to navigate where they're going, the surface that they're walking on, the people that are passing by, making sure they don't get stepped on. And then you've always got that, and anyone that has an assistance dog will get this, you always have that member of the public that will come over to you and ask if they can touch your dog or stroke your dog or what's wrong with you that means you have an assistance dog. That one's my favourite. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me. There's a lot right with me. Things are a bit broken, but there's nothing actually wrong with me. And that one I found can be a big one for a lot of assistance dogs because we try and train them to ignore the general public. We try and train them to ignore other dogs. So they're doing their best to go, no, I'm focusing on mum right now. Like I'm working here. Can you leave me alone? And people just don't leave you alone. And if you have any kind of anxiety based disorders as well as your physical ones, that can start to work us up. And when you're just trying to go to the shop and you've got your 10th person of the day asking you the same question, your dog feels that too. Like they are social animals, and I think sometimes we forget this with assistance dogs, is they have the mirror neurons just as we do at the front of their brain. They can pick up on our emotional states, which is what makes them such fantastic service dogs. But they're also very aware of when we're not too good, and if they start to associate us not feeling too good with these people approaching, some dogs will step in and they will go, look, just give my mum a little bit of a break now. We've got other dogs. One of the comments earlier on my chat was that a lady has an assistance dog, and her assistance dog, when he's not working, is great with the dogs and people. Once he's got his jacket on and he's working, he barks. Does anyone else have that with their assistance dog? This is something that I see quite a lot. I'll give you a couple minutes to reply for those of you that are watching. I don't know how long the delay is. Or has everyone just left? I think I'm still live. them perfect all the time. It's just not possible. Exactly. I would really love it to be discussed more in the community, because we can't have perfect assistance dogs. Um, Still here, disinterested. COVID added. Oh my gosh, so many dogs getting worse with COVID. Thank you for all the comments coming through. I can see. I panicked there. I was like, oh no. The problem with live is sometimes there's that bit of a delay, so you're never too sure. But I'm glad I'm not the only one that sees it. So sometimes when our dogs are working, is yes, Vicky. Sometimes they bark because out of frustration. So a bark itself is usually an emotional reaction. So often we think of barks as a learnt behavior or an annoying behavior. It's usually a conditioned emotional response. A lot of the time, barks are something that dogs will do naturally to alert us to something. So if they're reacting, we want to have a think about why they're reacting, how they're reacting. So if they're barking, are we looking at alert barks? Is it that single woof that kind of makes us go, ah? And that's when our dogs have spotted something. They're like, Mum, there's something here that you need to be aware of. Or I've spotted something that potentially could be a threat to you or to me. Sometimes if it's a woof and there's like a high pitch sort of noise at the end and it's a bit repetitive, that can be a bit of frustration. Often if you've got vocalizations that have some higher pitches at the end, you get a bit of frustration build up there. And some of these dogs, they are going to be frustrated because they're working and the other dogs are off playing. We have some assistance dogs that gradually start to get a little bit uncomfortable and anxiety starts to kick in. And they're barking because they just don't want to be bothered by people that day, similar to us. So it's having a look at the emotional needs of our dogs and if they're suited to the task that we have. Now, I'm not saying that if you have a dog that reacts every so often that they shouldn't be an assistance dog. That's not what I'm saying at all. All dogs can have a bad day. Assistance dogs are allowed to have a bad day. They're allowed to have a bad week. They are allowed to be in a situation that scares them despite all of your hard work, and they will need time to recover from that. And then there might be some situations where actually, this particular shopping centre or this particular type of transport, my dog doesn't like. And if we can mitigate around that so we can avoid those things with your dog, that's fine. There's some situations where our dogs tolerate it. It's when our dogs start to get really, really nervous and a bit unsure about working, then we have to kind of have that discussion about, is this dog really one that is suitable to work at the minute? So going back to the dog that was fine and would just bark once, with these dogs, it's trying to redirect them. It's giving them some extra focus. It's understanding that these are the situations where they'll bark. And with reactivity, because it is that emotional response, there's always like these distance. And I like to refer to them as bubbles. So anyone that has seen any of my page on Control the Meerkat, if you haven't, go check it out. I'll put a link to a video in after here. I talk all about how dogs will have a series of bubbles. So if you imagine basically a circle with a circle in the middle and another one, so like a bullseye target. So in the biggest one, that's when our dogs are nice and calm, they're nice and chilled out. This is where I say the meerkat that lives on your dog's shoulder is usually asleep. And once you get a bit closer to something or something startles them, they'll wake up and they'll stand up and they're on sentry duty. This is when they hit that reactive zone, and that's when you see those mild behaviors. So you see single barks, sometimes you'll see head turns, you'll see lip licks, you'll see those kinds of really subtle signs that our dogs are a little bit uncomfortable in this situation. They still have full cognitive control at that point. So you can say, oh, okay, come on, let's check back in with me, or just lie down, or have a sniff over here, calm yourself down. Nose work is fantastic if you've got dogs that are a little bit, if they've got themselves a bit wound up about something, giving them something to sniff, be that some cheese on the floor, some cloths that you've got that smell of different things. For some of my dogs, I will go around with like microfiber cloths and kind of rub them onto trees. I look like a weirdo, but it's really good for your dogs, especially if you have a dog on crate rest or one that isn't getting out very often, and giving them something to smell. They love smelling and enriching things, and that will naturally help to calm their emotion. And you've got two types of sniffing. So if they're sniffing and you're scatter feeding, so you're scatter feeding along and they're sniffing around in grass and they're just snuffling away, that almost puts the dog's brain in like a meditative state. So it enables them to take a nice deep breath. It gives them a bit of focus. They're able to reduce their resting heart rate and the breathing rate will come right down. If they're doing active searching, where they're searching for a specific thing, that's more active. That will have a completely different effect. It's still good, but not so much for the calming. And you were talking about Tilly, who asked before about the opticians with me on Wednesday. Two people talking outside with the dog. Um, she did a quite very loud bark. You said quiet. She did. One of the dogs outside was staring at her, but she settled and didn't bark again. It's that first bark that scares kids. Okay, yeah. So in that situation, if she's got another dog staring at her and being a little bit uncomfortable, she has every right, in my opinion, to say, "I'm working." That's rude. Which is essentially what that bark is. I had a Labrador that would do a very similar thing. If she found someone else was being rude, it was a very loud single woof, and then she'd check back in with me and be like, "What? They were being rude," and then she'd just lie down and settle. So as long as in that situation you know that your dog has just is just telling them off and they're focusing back on you, the ideal is to kind of catch it beforehand and get them into that relaxation, get them into that settle, get them into that check-in, or the walk on. Just walk on, ignore it, or scatter some food on the floor. Just eat this, just ignore the dogs over there. So they don't feel the need that they have to. But sometimes it is just the dog communicating to the dog to just stop what it is that they're doing because they can't take part in the interaction. Whereas if she was seeing dogs and she was barking out of fear or anxiety, that's one that we really need to have a look at. Because if they're reacting for those reasons, we need to have a discuss about why they're doing that and if they're suitable for an assistance dog. And even within that, with itself, one thing that I would love to see more of is a bit of a difference between our assistance dogs and public access. Because not all assistance dogs, like the tasks that they do to help us, require public access. At least not full public access. Because they do the tasks at home and they're really comfortable at doing those particular tasks at home, like helping us get undressed and fetching medication, doing those things, opening and closing doors, mitigating us around the streets. Not everyone needs the full public access. So it'd be nice to see a bit of a change in different levels of assistance dog, but that's a whole different topic there. But I want everyone to have a think about, if you do have an assistance dog and they are reacting, have a think about what it is that they're reacting to. You know, why they're reacting, what emotional state they are. And that's the most important part for me, is the emotional state of the dog when they are doing a behavior. You know, is it a positive emotional state? Are they getting excited? In which case, if they're excited, and with dogs, usually if they're getting excited or anticipating something, you'll see that little tippy tap. Most people will, hopefully you'll know what I mean by the tippy tap. Please don't gift that anyone that knows how to do that. But usually if you're about to throw a ball, there's always this little tippy tap. If they're barking and they're doing that, then they're usually excited, they're anticipating something. If it's a double bounce, usually that's a sign that there's a bit more frustration behind it. So we want to work on those emotional regulation. And I find personally with dogs, if we can teach them how to take a deep breath, so take them to really take a deep breath in and breathe out, which is a really good thing to teach your dogs. It's something Karen overall has done for years. I adapted my training techniques to fit hers because she taught it well better than I did. So it helps to regulate. And it's really nice that once you've taught a dog how to take a deep breath, in particular our working dogs, when they're in a situation that they don't particularly like, and most of us will know the situations, like we know our dogs, they're not going to be comfortable in every situation we put on them in. You know, that's a very unfair expectation to have on them. But the ones where they're a bit unsure, then teach them to take a deep breath. When they're in the environment, teach them to have that deep breath. And what happens is when they breathe in, they'll do a really nice big deep breath in. That will naturally activate all the parasympathetic nervous system, so that helps them to calm down within a couple of seconds. You can teach it at home just by holding food in your hand. Dogs are unable to pant and breathe in through their nose at the same time. So you just hold the food and you wait for them to close their mouth, and then you mark and reward. And then you keep an eye on their nostrils. And at some point, their nostrils will have to flare because they have to breathe because they're dogs. So as you're holding it here, they'll go. As they take a deep breath, you can then mark and reward. You can get that on cue. And once the dogs understand it, it's wonderful to see dogs out and about, see something they're a bit unsure about, and regulate themselves and going, okay, I feel better. Let's walk on. Just that very simple thing can have a huge thing for our assistance dog, because they're under so much pressure and having to monitor and look after things all the time. Now, my previous assistance dog was my medical alert dog, and I feel that the dogs that have the medical element to them as well, I think they work a little bit harder than some of the others, because they're not only doing the simple tasks for us and the task-based things, but they're monitoring us all the time. Like they're checking in on us, they're sniffing us, they're making sure that we're okay. And that's a huge ask. And I would see sometimes if she knew that my blood pressure levels were being a little bit funny, I could start to see the worry almost in her face, and she'd be looking around for like, where's the nearest bench, where's the nearest safe place for me to sit and lie down. And just cueing her to breathe in those moments would help her relax a little bit, make me relax a little bit, and we could go and sit down and I would pass out or whatever it was that I needed to do at that time. Um, we got some comments coming through. Darwin dogs do 3 grades, they're assistance dogs, only grade 3 are public access. Yep, it's great that some of the assistance dog charities are doing that. You've never marked it, just feed. Have a go at marking the breathing behaviour. Once you start to mark it, and then you can cue it in different situations. The same things with shake-offs. If you can teach our assistance dogs to take a deep breath and to do a shake-off on cue, you can cue them to do these in behaviours that you find that so if you notice they're getting a bit uncomfortable, so we're not talking about dogs that have got full on anxiety here. These are dogs where they're like, I don't really like it in this place, it's really crowded, it's a bit noisy, but you know, I'll walk through. If you can teach them a shake-off, or teach them to take a breath, and you can cue them in those situations, that physiologically will change your dog and help them feel better. And they'll start to pick up on that and go, oh, I'm just going to shake off. I feel better now. I'm just going to take a deep breath. I feel better now. So we can cue them like that. Now, if you have one of the bigger dogs and they're barking and they're more reactive because they've had a panic over something, because they've been attacked previously and they're getting a little bit wound up. One of my own dogs, he had a very scary experience when we were in a shopping centre with a gentleman that got a little bit aggressive with us, and then later in a different situation. So men walking towards me, he will be a bit funny towards, particularly if they smell of certain illegal substances, and he will bark at them. So I know if anyone has been taking or smoking anything, because he will let me know. So we have to work on that. And luckily for me, he's a miniature American Shepherd. He's a relatively small dog, so I can handle him quite well. If you're struggling with the handling side of things, we want to have a look at the equipment that you're using for your assistance dogs. We want to make sure that it's well fitted, that it's comfortable, and that it's not going to cause them any pain. They're going to be in this equipment for a long time when they're working. It has to be fitted properly. Make sure it's washed, that it's cleaned on a regular basis, that we don't have any mud, dried up that's rubbing along their armpits. We want to make sure that with their collars you can get a good 2 fingers through. The thicker collars are the better ones, because it's not going to put as much pressure on them. I personally love assistance dogs in harnesses, a well-fitted, nice harness that has a front attachment. It gives them full movements of their body. They're by your side, and you get that extra control if you need to move them around. Head collars is something you see a lot in assistance dogs. For me, head collars are a 50-50. It's all about the dog. So if I have a really big dog and I'm worried about losing control, or I'm worried that they're going to knock me out of my chair, for example, then sometimes having a head collar on a dog is really beneficial. Just make sure that, one, you train it in a way where the dog is comfortable. So you've built up that condition. It's a fun exercise for them where they learn to put their nose in and they're happy with it. And 2, it is well fitted, and that when they are wearing it, that you're not using it to jerk them around, because it can put a lot of pressure on their neck. So think twice before using head collars, and make sure your dogs are happy with them. Often you'll find a front attachment harness is the best one. If you feel that you need to use anything like a prong collar or a choke collar or anything like that with your assistance dog, then please have a think about why it is that you feel that you need to use those, and if your dog is actually emotionally ready to be a service dog at that level. Because if you need to control them using that kind of device, chances are, I'm sorry, but your dog probably isn't right to be a service dog in that situation. The last thing that we want for these animals is to be in even more pain, to be feeling more anxious. If they feel that they're going to have discomfort, and that's all it needs to be to trigger that meerkat, to trigger that panic button in our animals' brains, is they only need to feel the slightest bit of discomfort or threat to them. And pressure on the neck is a conditioned response. Like all animals, if they feel pressure on their neck, they're going to have an internal reaction to that, because it's a very threatening thing. So they might look okay on the outside, but internally, they're going to be on edge, which means they're going to be more reactive in situations. They might be suppressing it, and they'll have a passive response. But if you monitor their heart rate, monitor their breathing rates, I can almost guarantee these dogs are not relaxed when they're wearing this equipment. So try and have a think about those things and see, okay, how can I make my dog as comfortable as possible in these situations? The more relaxed they can be, the more comfortable they can be, the less reactive they're going to be. If they are reacting, again, get them out of the situation as soon as you can. Have a think about the setup of the situation you were in and go, okay, how far away was the thing that they were reacting to? What were they doing? What was I doing? Had my dog been trying to signal to me that they were uncomfortable and I missed it? Which is a possibility. You know, if we're sat in a cafe and our dogs are chilling out by our feet and we're sat with a nice cup of tea, of which I've forgotten that I've got. I hope everyone else has got their brews with them as well. And then suddenly your dog under the table jumps up and barks or mutters something or growls under the table. You're like, oh, chances are for a while they've probably been turning their head. They might have been licking. They might have been staring at another dog that's been staring at them. So when we can, just glance down and check on our dogs. Sometimes I find kind of touching them. I like to try and teach dogs a signal for when they start to get uncomfortable. It's like a paw or a nose target of a mum. Can we leave? Like, your dog has every right to ask to leave a situation as much as you do. So if you can teach them little signals where they know, let's go. And sometimes they just need that reassurance from you. And there's nothing wrong with giving your dog that reassurance. They need it. They're social animals. They need that care. And that can help trigger and make them feel safe. The safer you can make our dogs feel, the more relaxed we can make our dogs feel, the less reactive they are going to be. Relaxed, happy dogs don't fight. Like, they don't bite. It's different parts of the brain that are activated. If we can keep them nice and relaxed, nice and happy, and build that safety and trust in us, that's what's going to help with our reactive dogs. So if we have a look at how we can build up to getting there with our puppies, let's just see what the comments have said before I go into puppies. I love the deep breath idea. I've just looked at Karen Overall's training protocol, and again, yeah, she's got a wonderful deep breath protocol for that. Thank you. I say this a lot. If you don't have control of a dog and it's needing a training collar, it's either not ready to be a service dog or doesn't have what it takes. Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, not all dogs are capable of being service dogs. Not all dogs are capable of being assistance dogs. You can have a dog that has had the best breeding in the world. It has the right genetics. It has been raised in the best possible environment. They've done all the right kind of socialization. It has been trained in the right way. But that dog just doesn't want to be an assistance dog. They're not motivated to do it. They don't particularly like the job. That is not a failure on your part. Okay? That's a big thing I want to get out here, is just because your dog, when you get there, doesn't pass their test, it does not a failure on you. There are some dogs where they just do not want to do their job, and it is their right to say, no, this isn't the job for me. I just want to laze around in the house all day. I don't want to go to the supermarket with you. I don't want to travel on the trains. I don't want to do all this. I will happily empty the washing machine for you at home, and I'll pick up the things off the floor, and I'll put things on the shelves for you. But I don't want to do that when we're in the supermarket. I don't want to do this when I'm in these situations, because it's a big strain on our dogs. And it's almost like when you're training an assistance dog, everyone expects your dog to be able to pass. It's such a high expectation, and then we feel like we have to be able to do it. And if you're a dog trainer, or if you've got multiple assistance dogs and you've done this for a while, it's even extra pressure on you for your dog to actually pass. And I'll honestly say, I've got 2 assistance dogs in training. My medical alert dog sadly passed away last year, very quickly, so I have 2 assistance dogs in training. The reason I have 2 is the older one of the 2, Nuffle, they're both miniature American Shepherds, by the way, which are fantastic breeds. I adore them a lot. Nuffle is 3 years old. He has fantastic breeders. He was raised in a fantastic way. I'm a clinical animal behaviourist, so as far as raising a behaviourally healthy dog, I should know what I'm talking about. So we did everything right. But for him, he is one of the least motivated dogs I have ever met. Like, he's very much a meh kind of dog. He loves just chilling out either along the back of the sofa or with me. He is fantastic at his medical alerts. Like, if I'm not feeling too good, he will come and alert me and let me know. He's not a big fan of doing tasks for me. He'll do it as and when he wants to. And when we're out and about, he's great at mitigating things for me. But again, the task work isn't his thing. He enjoys the medical detection. He likes letting me know when I'm okay, when I'm not okay. He can help ground me. He can help do like deep pressure therapy and things like that. Hello, Nicola. um, but the task work, he doesn't particularly like it. Whereas Spock, same breed, different breeders, but very similar lines. He is 10 months old now, and oh my gosh, does that boy want to work? Like, he is picking things up, he's carrying things, he's fetching things for me when we're out and about. For a lockdown puppy in particular, he just wants to do everything. So I don't have a huge amount of concerns about his ability to do the job as we get older. But Nuffle, potentially. So he'll probably end up being a part-time assistance dog, where I'll only take him to situations where I know he can handle. And I'm not going to see it as a failure on my part if he doesn't pass any assistance dog certifications that I decide to put him through. Because that's just who he is. And when you think of things ethically, I'm a very ethical trainer, and it's a force-free weekend, is that if I feel like I have to do so much extra on my dog to train them up even further, to force them to do a behavior that I know he's not happy doing, just so he can mitigate my disability, am I actually being an ethical force-free trainer there? I don't feel I am. So I'm not going to force him to do a job that he doesn't want to do just because I need that, or just because I feel that people might think that I'm not a good trainer, or think that he's a failed assistance dog, and that, you know, his breeders weren't very good, or his early lifestyle wasn't very good, or anything like that. There are just some dogs that no matter what you do, how good a trainer you are, they just don't want to do the work, or they only want to do part of the work. So please don't feel bad if your dogs don't get up to that. But if you've got a dog and you want to get them up to there, there's lots of things that you can do to help. So if you have young puppies, rule number one, please just let them be a puppy. Don't put too much pressure on them to learn different behaviors, different tasks. I see posts quite a lot of people going, look, my puppy's 6 months old and already they're emptying the washing machine. Oh, look, they're doing this. It's great if they're doing that, but have it as a game. Please do it as a way for these puppies to just enjoy picking things up and carrying them. Pick them up so they're opening and closing doors through a game of tuggy. Make sure everything they're doing is a fun game, that there is no pressure for them to actually do this stuff in the environment. They have to be a puppy first. They have to. The best assistance dog that I had, my girl, anyone that met Holly, she is the happiest, well, she was the happiest dog in the world. She came to conferences with me all the time. She would go everywhere. And she was a pet dog for the first 5 years of her life, because I didn't have a chronic illness at that time. She was just a pet dog. She did her good citizens, bronze and silver. I was a dog trainer, so we did bits of things, but she never went in supermarkets, she never went on a public transport, she never went anywhere that a pet dog wouldn't go, other than a few kind of cafes and things like that and pubs. 5 years. And then when I got diagnosed with my illness, she started to naturally alert that I was going to become unconscious. And I was like, oh, then I started looking to owner trained assistance dogs, because she was a bit too old at the time. And I actually watched some of Ruby's videos a few years ago where I actually learned about owner trained assistance dogs, because up until that point, to my shame as a clinical behaviorist, I didn't know it was legal. I thought they had to be registered. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about Ruby's talk later on. So then I was like, okay, let's see if she can do this. But because I let her be a puppy, I had built up such a good relationship with her. She was a confident dog, she was a happy dog. She flew through everything that I put her through, because we had that bond, she had that emotional connection, she had that emotional stability, because I just allowed her to be a puppy. Now with Nuffle, admittedly, I probably did put a little bit of extra pressure on him, because I knew the boots that he had to fill. Like, how am I supposed to get a dog to be as fantastic as Holly? So possibly I may have put a bit more pressure on him early on. Looking back, I don't think I did, but possible I might have done. I haven't with Spock. And that's the key that I want to get out there for anyone that's got any puppies that are worried about lockdown. Is it's not so much about where we're taking them and what we're doing with them. It's building up that motivation within our puppies. It's building up our confidence within our puppies and our relationship to you. If you have a dog that trusts you, is confident, that you're going to be able to take them anywhere. And I see this a lot in my reactive dog work. So my main dog is I work with aggressive dogs on a pretty much daily basis, and through rehabilitation. And we can get some dogs that have been terrified of everything to a point where they can walk and they can be okay and relaxed with it because they've got that bond with their owner. They've managed to regulate their emotions, they're able to stay calm, they're able to stay relaxed, and they know that mum's going to get them out of the situation if they're going to panic. We want the same kind of relationship with our assistance dogs. We want them to know that if they're worried about something, we're going to help them out. You know, we're not going to force them to stay in that situation just because we want to, especially in the early stages. As they get older, yeah, they're going to have to be in situations that they're going to want to be in because we have to be. You know, they might have to be stuck on a train for 4 hours because we are traveling to a different location. They might be stuck in a hospital for a few hours on a not very nice floor with loads of smells and noises going around. They might have to go on the London Underground. They might have to go in different stations. They might have to go in a really weird shopping centre up and down stairs where it's really, really noisy. There's lots of fluorescent lights and everything's really shiny. Those things are very stressful for dogs, and not all of them want to do it, but some of them have to. And if you've got that relationship with them, then they're going to go with you because they're like, okay, it's you, I'm going to come with you. And they will do it. So it's maintaining that emotional regulation and allowing them to just be dogs. Like, please, if you've got your assistance dog, they are assistance dogs, absolutely. But first and foremost, they are dogs. Allow them to be dogs. Give them that time to run around and be an idiot, to play with other dogs, to go and dig in a sand pit, to get all of that extra energy out, and make sure that everything is as fun as possible for them. As soon as you start to try and put too much pressure on these dogs, if you try and use any kind of aversive methods with these dogs, is yeah, sure, they're going to respond to you, but they're going to be not complacent. They're going to listen to you, and they're going to do it from compliant, that's the word. They're going to be compliant with you. And dogs that are heavily compliant, often that's a trauma response. It's a fawning response where they know that no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to escape the situation, so they're just going to do what they're told. But the emotional stability isn't there. And these are dogs that end up being quite dangerous because they will appear quite calm on the outside, but on the inside they're panicking and they're just waiting for their moment where they can release and they can just get away from the situation. And we don't want that with assistance dogs. We want them to be happy, we want them to be comfortable, we want them to be nice and relaxed. So avoid anything that is going to cause them any distress. Again, back to equipment. Please make sure that your equipment is suitable for the breed that you've got, that it's nice and comfortable, that it's well fitted. So has anyone got any questions so far about what I've been talking about? Because I can waffle about this stuff for ages, and I want to make sure I'm answering any specific questions that you do have. Holly was a dream, Vicky. Yeah, you're right. She was a very, very special dog. Your first assistance dog didn't enjoy public access and was much happier when we retired him from public work. He always loved helping at home. Yeah, I see that a lot. Some of them, they love the assistance dog task. They just don't really like the public access work. It takes a very special dog to do the work in public. Nicola, this is one of the problems I have with assistance ponies. Usually Shetland ponies and miniature horses. It's really difficult for them to have sufficient or any proper equine time. Absolutely. And with assistants or ponies and horses in particular, it's very difficult to make sure that you're catering for all of their welfare needs. I mean, even just on a base level of ensuring that they're able to graze on a regular basis. So that one's a very difficult topic, and I should probably keep my mouth shut there. But I mean, there's probably ways that you can do it ethically and force-free. And I've seen some ponies where they look quite happy and they seem it, but I'm not. You're much better at horses than I am. But it is making sure that these animals are happy and they are relaxed when they're in these situations, because we don't want them to go into that panic station. We don't want that meerkat to take over. So I'll share a video shortly, a little animation I've got of the meerkat that sits on your dog's shoulder and it panics. And when it does panic is when your dogs are in the situations where they react and do that intense reaction. It's a conditioned emotional response. Your dogs have no conscious control over the actions they do in that situation. So there's no point essentially in trying to train them in that situation because they're not there. Their brain isn't on live. They've been emotionally hijacked. Like the meerkat's essentially holding on to them going, no, we're going to panic and we're going to do all these things. It's not until you get them out of the situation that they come back online and they're able to respond to us. Which is why when people ask me, what do I do when my dog's reacting? get out of the situation. Take them out of the situation as fast as you can. Because as long as they're in the situation, they're going to keep doing it. And the more you keep putting them in that situation, the more they're going to keep doing it. One of my mentees the other day said, if you're going to keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. And I think that's such a wonderful phrase. You know, if you just keep doing the same thing all the time with your dogs and expecting a different result, you're not going to get it. So if you have got a dog that's starting to become reactive, just take a step back, have a think about the situations that they're reacting in, and think of how you can support your dogs through this. You know, what do they need? Do they need some extra food? Do they need some time to play? Do they need a break? You know, can we give them a couple of weeks off where they can just be a dog again? And sometimes just taking the jacket off, just giving them some time, will just do a world of good. And then just pop the jacket on for 5 or 10 minutes when you're out on a walk. Do some like little training with them, take the jacket off, let them go off and be a dog again. You know, sometimes taking the jacket off and just having the lead sleeve on when you're going out and about, so they can be in those situations but a bit more on the relaxed side, so they don't feel the pressure of working. We get some dogs that get so overwhelmed by the pressure of having to work, and they get so scared of getting it wrong that they then start to become almost like a nervous wreck, going, oh my gosh, what if I get it wrong? What if I do this? And you see the worry almost on their faces. And if anyone has a dog like this, I feel for you greatly, because I've met a few, and they do tend to be little worriers. But if they're working, they tend not to panic as much. So it's finding out what it is that helps your dog, so we can help them emotionally regulate. So a few top tips, just to recap what we've gone over, is to figure out the reasons why your dogs are reacting in this situation. What's the emotional driver for it? Normal dog time is so important. Absolutely. They have to be dogs. They have to be dogs first. Dogs first, before their breeds, before their job, before anything else. It's that they are a dog first. Allow them to be a dog. You know, if you have a particular breed, let them be a dog first, then engage in breed-specific activities. But don't put too much pressure of the particular breed onto the dog, because they're all individuals at the end of the day. They'll have certain breed traits, but there's no breed that would be a better assistance dog and no breed that will be a worse assistance dog. There are individuals within all breeds that are fantastic assistance dogs. Just look at the people that have wolf dogs and Malamutes as assistance dogs, and beagles. They are out there and they are fantastic. There are Labradors that are rubbish and don't pass the test, even though most of them do. And my girl was a Labrador, so it's no offence to any Labradors out there. So I'm a guide dog user and wholeheartedly with you. Important to let a dog be a dog too, and let pups be pups. And I've given my 3 last guide dog regular breaks and think, yeah, absolutely. They love having a break, and it's so important that they get that break. One thing that I'll be doing with my 2, hopefully if they both pass, is I'll have them on timeshares, essentially. So when one's working, the other one can have a break, and they can start to take it in turns of who is the one that's monitoring my physical needs to check if I'm going to pass out or anything, and which one can just go to sleep and not worry. Because when you've got a dog that is working and they're monitoring you 24 hours a day, that's taxing. Just ask any parent that has had to homeschool during lockdown how emotionally taxing it is to be mentally alert 24 hours a day. I mean, not just when you're homeschooling lockdown, just any parent in general. You know, the difference you feel when your children are around as to when your children are away at grandma's for the weekend is completely different, because having your brain mentally active 24 hours a day is extremely stressful. And we want to make sure that our dogs have this time to have a break, that they know when they're working and when they're not working. So they have that time to relax, to emotionally regulate, that they have times to do sniff games. And I would recommend that every assistance dog has at least 10 minutes a day where they just get to snuffle and they just get to sniff. Remember earlier on we were talking about sprinkling some food. So snuffle mats are great for this, sprinkling cheese or powder into grass, using sometimes licking mats will help, but something just so they have that motion of sniffing backwards and forwards. They don't have to ingest anything. The sniffing alone is fine, and that's essentially like a form of doggy meditation. It allows the brain to reset, it allows the brain to calm down, and it just gives them that moment where they can just focus on that thing. There's no other responsibilities, there's nothing else they have to do. And just 10 minutes a day of that can help so many reactive dogs. It's amazing once you start doing it and seeing the results, because we're working with them internally. Rather than focusing on the behavior and trying to stop the behavior and trying to train them to do other things, it's actually, let's just teach them how to regulate themselves emotionally. Let's teach them how to bring themselves down. Teach them to take a deep breath. Teach them to relax and switch off. So if they're relaxing, give them a nice reward for it. Give them a nice stroke and say thank you. Allow them to learn to just do nothing. Because assistance dogs, they're going to be bored a lot of the time. So they need to learn to be okay with doing nothing. So take them places and do nothing. Go for a picnic with your dogs. Picnics are brilliant ways of teaching them to relax as things are going on. Because we'll naturally kind of go places where there's not going to be a huge amount of distractions because we don't want things to go over our food. So start to change from, especially the younger assistance dogs in training, is have lots of picnics in parks. So go in the middle of a park away from people and then gradually get closer to the people until you can stop on a park bench and watch the wheel go by. And it just allows the dogs to just be in the moment, do nothing, and realize that everything's okay. You can do nothing and it's fine. You can relax and just chill out. We don't have to react to everything. We don't have to worry about everything. Mum and Dad's here. And build on those check-ins and the focus with you. And it's just regulating those emotions with our assistance dogs. But also trying to remember ourselves as assistance dog handlers that our dogs are allowed to have a bad day. They are allowed to bark in public if they see something that is worth barking at. If something is bothering them or stressing them out, they might want to alert you to something. They might want to let you know that there's a dog over there that looks questionable. And their bark might be, one, to let the dog know that they don't want to interact with them. And it's also to let you know that they spotted a dog that they're feeling a bit uncomfortable with, so can we leave? Because they know in that situation they can't approach the dog. They can't deal with that problem themselves because they're working, so they're relying on us to take care of it. So if you do see your dog kind of looking at other dogs and staring, just get them out of it. And I see it a lot with assistance dogs where they become a little bit reactive to other dogs, or other dogs become very reactive to them because they ignore them so much. Our dogs are working, they're focusing on us, the other dogs come running over wanting to play. And our assistance dogs are going, I can't play right now, I'm working. And the dogs are there bounding on them, I can't play right now. And the frustration that these dogs feel often triggers the attack on our assistance dogs, which is something that we can't have. And if you're a wheelchair user, it's even more terrifying. Or if you're a guide dog user, you're extremely vulnerable in these situations. So anyone that's watching, if you don't have an assistance dog and your dog is off lead and you see an assistance dog, or a dog in general, to be honest, that's on their lead, call them back, please. We have enough friendly dogs out there. We don't need them all charging up to everyone. Little tips to kind of help people that do have dogs that are charging up to them. You have the options of, really common one is to throw food in the direction of the dog. So it's having some food on you, throwing it out and walking away. That one it's useful. It's a temporary one for the other owner to come and pick up their dog, because the dog will stay there usually long enough. You can have problems with resource guarding. If your dog sees that you're throwing food for another dog, your dog has to be okay with you doing that. We also don't know if, as the other dog is eating the food, they might have a snap at your dog. So if you do throw food on the floor for the dog to distract them, move your dog away, or throw it basically at the dog's nose as they're running towards you, so they stop at a distance, they eat the food. That one's good if you've got the owners that are chasing after their dogs, that are coming to get them because you've given a way to stop their dog still. If the owner is nowhere around, do not use that technique, because chances are that dog's going to follow you once you've thrown food at it, and it's just going to keep with you. Has anyone had that happen where they've thrown food to catch the dog, to make the dog stop, and then they've started to follow them because they want more food? Yeah, same thing, Gemma, is sometimes you're rewarding the dog for recalling over. If they know they're going to run over and mug everyone. A technique that I used to use for my dog is I used to have an umbrella that I would be able to put out to form as a block. So I would be able to have an umbrella to form a block to protect my dog. Some people have used pop-up umbrellas. They're going to startle the other dog. They're not the nicest of things to use. Make sure you condition your dog. But if you do carry a stick, anything like that, just to form a barrier, obviously don't hit the other dog, but it just forms a barrier between your dogs. So your dog knows to come on this side of your chair or to stand behind you, and you've got something that you can just move in front of yourself. So you just, there you go. So that's your stick, and you're just moving it like that, just to form that little bit of a barrier. You've got your dog behind you, so your dog has a little bit of space. Or see if you can teach your dog to switch from one side of the chair to the other, if the lead allows. Because often if we've got our dogs attached onto a wheelchair, they're not always able to switch sides. Sometimes they can go from the side to the back, sometimes from the side to the front. They can't always switch sides. So sometimes maneuvering a little bit, so you form a barrier between the dog and the other dog. It's a very difficult situation to try and mitigate. So if anyone else has any tips that have been in those situations, I would love to hear them. But for our dogs, it's building up that safety, building up that emotional response, making sure that they can take a deep breath, that they can shake off on cue, that they've got these ways to let you know that they need to get out of a situation. And to not feel too bad if your dog's had a bad day. You know, they're dogs, they're going to bark, and people are going to look at you, and they will give you that look as that's supposed to be an assistance dog, what's it doing barking? You're like, well, it's a dog, it's got vocal cords. They bark is what they do. You know, they're all going to have it. Sometimes just saying to the people, yeah, they're alerting me to something, and then they can't answer you back. But I think my time is almost up, so I hope I've not waffled on too much for everyone. If you want to find out more about anything that I do, I have 2 Facebook pages. I have Danielle Beck, Clinical Animal Behaviourist, so that's just my general one. And hello, Ruby! And I also have Control the Meerkat, which is a brand new community that was only launched the back end of last year. It's my community for reactive dog owners, and it allows everyone to kind of get together and support each other if you have reactive dogs. We have some assistance dog courses that are due to be released later on in the year to try and help people from that perspective of learning how to train, what kind of things to train, how to prepare your dog emotionally for being an assistance dog. Because as I said, not all of them are suitable for it, and it doesn't always have anything to do with the training. It's just the personality of those dogs. Oh gosh, people are saying thank you. You're very welcome. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I hope I've made a little bit of sense. I've tried to cram a lot of stuff into 50 minutes. Ruby, you missed it. I have to catch up on the replay. I did give you a shout out though about a video you did earlier on. Breathe and shake isn't in my chill out protocol, but it is on one of the courses. I'm going to do a specific one on teach them to breathe and shake off. Oh, Skylar heard my voice. Oh, that's sweet. Fantastic. I'm so happy everyone enjoyed it. And it's been such an awesome day, and I can't wait to listen to the rest of the speakers. Next one up, I think, is doing reactivity as well. And then it's Ruby, all about assistance dogs in the UK. Owner trained, so that'd be fantastic. So thank you so much for your support. It helps with more than just assistance dogs. Thank you. So assistance dogs are just dogs. They are still dogs. So alright, I will let you all go. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. It's been lovely to have you here. If you have any questions, pop them in the comment below, or just send me a message on any of my things. And I'll pop a couple of videos on there to give you a bit of an idea as to what it was that I was talking about.